You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Doing other things before theater, especially, is good for the art. Like the most real world experience gives you the most into what a lot of these plays, musicals, artwork itself are trying to get into. And all of that helps. I mean, everybody has, a robust and diverse background, but like the more input I felt like I could get, the more I felt like I could reach these specific works, especially,
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Heather Vickery.
And I'm Alan Seals. And Heather and I started off as two perfect strangers who met by chance and embraced opportunity. Listen in as we chat with other successful people about the risks they've taken to put themselves on a path to creative success.
Alan, I'm excited about today's guest. Can you tell everybody who's here with us?
Can I? I wrote the bio. I would love to.
Can I? Would you please?
Would I please? Okay.
Did you just correct my grammar? No, sorry.
Our guest today is Nicholas Hussong, who is an artist, designer, and creative producer who was recently nominated for a Tony Award for Best Scenic Design of a Play for his work as a projection designer on the recent Broadway production of Skeleton Crew. He's a graduate of Yale School of Drama, among many other things. He's got a long list of credits designing for live performances, both on and off Broadway. Words are hard. He has worked as a creative programmer for Marc Jacobs, director of design for Smith and Westward, is the co-creator of Feast, an immersive designing experience with Listen and Breathe, and is also an adjunct professor at the New School in New York and at USC in Los Angeles, California.
Ooh.
Nicholas, holy crap, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, look at you, double coast, bi-coastal.
That's a pandemic thing that happened. It was just like,
really?
How did that we're jumping in way ahead of where we normally start, but how does that happen during the pandemic?
Well,
because it's virtual.
Yeah, because I was doing all live performance before the pandemic, and then it stopped. And I was doing some Zoom theater, like I think many people were, and was like, oh, I think I'm ready for a change. And there had been an opportunity in television for a while from this writer, Roland Jones, that I worked with like right out of grad school. Who'd been trying to get me to come to LA and try that out. And it seemed like a great time. We wanted some sun. We wanted to see the other coast and see how that would work. So we moved and lived there until roughly now, the beginning of this year. And then now we're trying to do the bi-coastal thing.
Wait. So it was when physical theater shut down and everyone quarantined, you moved to be a physical teacher on another coast?
I did. Well, I moved. I initially moved to work in podcasting, actually, and television.
Oh.
For this company called Dwight Street Book Club. They had just recently gotten picked up by AMC to write and create Interview with a Vampire. So I moved out there to help them and just be like artist, dramaturg, help them with basically whatever they need, some graphic things. Help them launch some podcasts. And then through some friends that I have out there, they're like, hey, why don't you come teach at USC? So I did.
Okay. There's so much chance embracing that has happened along that last couple sentences. So the creative design for podcasting, I want to dive into this because I know my own experience, our experience with creating logos and making a website and whatever the case is when it comes to the design work of a podcast, but for a medium that's mostly pretty much audio driven, what is your role? What was your role in the podcasting space?
Yeah, so it was a slow roll when I went out there. We didn't really know exactly what I was going to do. They knew that they wanted some dramaturgical help with the television stuff, though there was also many other great people working on that. I was there to help them think about it visually and storytelling, and so they were just excited to have me. They already had a very successful podcast called Ask Rana that I got involved with because they wanted to do a rebranding for Instagram mostly at that time. They also have a coffee that they sell, so I was helping with that.
Podcast coffee.
Coffee.
Why don't we have a podcast coffee?
It's actually quite successful. So I would suggest, the subscribers help make the podcast possible, as well as
was it chance the coffee, the podcast, the coffee. Got it. All right, cool.
Go on. Exactly. I can see it already. And then we just kept trying new things. Like it's an advice podcast. It also has this lifestyle element. So I helped them generate more revenue and more people. And what the audience was excited about was, the Instagram for one, and what new things we could present to them. And then I just sort of got involved in the producing side, and we started doing, virtual live shows and, trying to build out this quote unquote universe for this podcast. And now we're trying to develop our own network of things. So it's like, so we can build off the success of Ask Rana and bring in other podcasts to try and create,
Alan loves the word network.
I do. I do.
I saw his whole face like, wait, we need to talk later.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
So, Nicholas, we often interview people who are very forward-facing in creative arts. And it's really fun to be able to talk with you because your work is forward-facing, but you are, Drew Gasparini said that, like the most famous person you've never heard of kind of thing. What led you into it's so creative, but also, I don't do this type of work, but I imagine there's so much collaboration and cooperation required. You very rarely, I assume, just get to design and create. So what led you to this, and what do you love about it?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is right. I think it was the collaboration that really brought me here, and more specifically, the people. Like, I thought for a long time about being a studio artist. I've had many people encourage me and want to give me funding to do sort of things on my own, that I would sort of be the face of this thing. And it's interesting to me to try as like a mental exercise. But I think I'm most excited about pushing a story or an idea or a thing, even if it's not either of those things, forward. And it's important to me to be surrounded with people that, I really do think that more minds are better than one. There's always the point of the spear, like there needs to be someone leading us, but like
sure. Yeah.
the people and the conversations, I think, can have a richer outcome if we just let that space exist. And if I'm completely honest, I never really wanted to be in the forefront. I sort of like in the background because I feel like I have more room to, for me personally, think and create and help see what we're trying to do from a different angle.
I love that. It reminds me of, this is going to sound like a random segue, but bear with me for a second. Abby Wambach's book, Wolfpack. There's this moment where she talks about whenever she would score a goal, she would immediately do the dance and point, where she would point at the coach who got her there or the person who made the pass or whatever, because you don't score a goal without everybody else involved in getting you to that point. And I can see you getting those points, right? Like we could not have done this without your incredible creative work.
Who was the first person that led you down the path that you're on now to that point, right? Who was the first coach, the first pass what was the first pass you got as young Nikki to be like, I'm going to start drawing or designing or projecting?
Yeah. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Still to this day, look, I live on two coasts. I do many different things, which is exciting to me. Probably like my just risk, excitement. Like, they talk about risk averse people. I sort of like, let's try it. Let's do this thing. Let's see what happens. Mostly it's worked out okay. Sometimes it's, a little dicey there for a little bit, but I would say I didn't know what I want to do, especially in undergrad. And then I just took a theater class on a whim, and that professor, Kip Schauger, just was like, oh no, try harder, focus this, look, it can be all these different things. Like, think about this, just sort of opened my mind up in a way that I had never really thought I could. And this, I'm very proud of my undergrad, which is Ball State in Indiana.
Oh, hey, that's where my whole family is from, Muncie.
Really? That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So I lived there in Muncie for 4 years and had a great time, but I wouldn't necessarily call it like a art school. Like, talking eventually where
it's a nursing school.
Yeah, exactly. Most of my friends were trying to be nurses or like some sort of political science situation. But it was just enough of a push in a direction that then I could, after grad school, like sort of explored around and tried to find that next thing to sort of, feed that longing for community in the sense of like that collaboration, like we were talking about, like what are these conversations that can help push this story or whatever forward.
What I love about that, though, is it's just this reminder that you don't actually have to have a specific degree in something to be really successful in it. You have to have an interest and some skill and some talent and
hopefully some talent.
Well,
I think
resilience, I think.
Resilience, I think, is a big part of it. I tell my students a lot that it's, especially my undergrad students, it's like, just get that receipt. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You just got to get that first degree. Just try as many things as you want. If you're getting a degree, that's totally cool. But just get the receipt. Then you have your whole life to figure other things out, especially if it's theater or, in the arts in general. Like there's many paths to what you want to go. And you are your own definition of success. Like, the world will tell you one thing, or you will think it's one thing, but then a few years later, it might be like, oh no, this is actually interesting to me. Maybe I want to just work abroad or work on this tiny little project that brings me joy and can provide for my life.
I guess that's sort of the philosophy that I go by as well. In like, I was sort of the same way. I got a computer science degree, and then with that degree, that receipt, I started being a professional actor. So I always had that. And then when applying, like, it's nice to have that receipt, like you said, to be able to say like, yeah, I went through this. And during that whole process, you meet your support structure, you meet your friends, you meet your opportunities that are going to allow you to move forward and decide what you do, and more importantly, what you do not want to do. Because when you can check off what you don't want to do, it's going to help you decide further on, what you do like. And I sort of want to segue that into a Skeleton Crew for a second, because I feel like, just from my own I guess awareness of the technology, talking specifically about projections in theater, I never really noticed that until whenever Frozen opened on Broadway.
Sure.
And the whole disappointment of like, wait, they didn't actually build they relied on projections. They didn't build an actual ice castle.
Ouch.
Like, screw you,
You're just
Disney.
super harsh.
Exactly.
That was the
career.
biggest criticism of one of the big.
Well, yeah, there was a couple, but yeah, that was one.
Yeah, that was one of the big ones. Anyway, not saying that projections are bad. I'm saying in that show, they relied on it too heavily. But my point being, that was when I started noticing projections. So when you were in school for design work at a school that wasn't particularly a theater school, I guess where did you, or how did you fall into projections? Because I'm involved.
And was it chance?
And was it chance?
Absolutely.
Because I don't understand how you even start with that. Like, that's a niche within a niche within a niche.
Yeah, at Ball State, there we had a projector, but we didn't really use it very often because they didn't. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't as. It certainly existed in the world, but it wasn't in our stratosphere there. So I graduated with the scenic design. I left. I did some technical work. I moved to North Carolina. I became the artistic associate there. And then they were like, okay, we're going to do this glass menagerie, but Tom's not going to have a typewriter. He's going to have a camera. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they were like, well, you're going to do the camera work. Like, you're going to figure out how to make it work. And then we were like,
so that you could see what was in his camera.
Exactly. So
that's cool.
So they were staging.
Really cool. I want to see that show.
Yeah. It was. I'm very proud of it. It was like the one that I was like, oh, this is what I should do, and it was totally chance. Because then we started getting into it, and we were like, oh, so this is what Tom sees, So we're having what Tennessee Williams wrote on stage, and then we're trying to get the subtext of what he wrote, through Tom's eyes of what he sees. And so then we did these film things as well. That's like a little bit deeper into it. And we just did it on PowerPoint, and I plugged it right into a projector, like the simplest idea as possible. And that was it. But then I was hooked because it was, all the planning of a scenic designer or a director, but all the versatility of a director or lighting designer in tech. So we could plan it out and film these things. But once we were there, I could respond to the actors in the room and what we're discovering in the space or in the rehearsal hall in a way that was more freeing than just setting up for success like a scenic center does, which is so important of creating that foundation. But I also enjoyed being able to keep being versatile throughout the process.
What is the process of designing a projection to fit exact spaces on a scene? Like how do you go through the math, right, of saying, all right, so we have a 5-foot wide proscenium, which equates to 3.62 millimeters on the screen here. Like, how does that all work?
You just said it basically. So we get drawings, and we make pretty good estimates based off of how big the projectable amount is, like the raster of it, so like the full amount able to project. And then we can do the math. We could turn the feet or meters into pixels, and then it'll tell us how big the screen or pixel or surface should be.
That is so interesting. So then the actual projections, so there's a projector at the back of the house, projecting on the set. And how do you add tracking? Because I've seen some things where I forget what it was. Maybe it was the opening of Pippin. I actually forget what it was. Something on Broadway like years ago, where the guy had his hand open and there was a shadow of a bird that was projected. And wherever he moved his hand, the bird followed. What's the tech behind projection tracking? Is that something different, or is that all related?
No, it's certainly a part of it. And I would say that there's like a financial scale of complexity.
Of course.
The cheapest being...
Because if the bird's going to follow you around, that's going to cost you a lot of money.
It is. Yeah. We'll say that's the Pippin Broadway version. But if we bring it all the way back down, I would say most of the time it's faked. Like the choreography is just so tight that you can't tell. The next step is like a little encoder, which is basically like a mouse following a piece of tape that knows exactly where it is, so it can follow like a panel around. And then you step up one more, and then you have like diodes and cameras that follow it along. And then you step up one more, which is like XR, which is like the new fancy thing, which means that there's a giant LED wall behind you, and it can track based off of where the human is and where these little diodes, like it maps the whole space. This Black Track Idea is the brand, and it can like just see where everything is and be like, yeah, okay, I'll project on that.
And it's all powered by Xbox Kinect cameras.
That is also a thing. That is also a thing. I mean, they're slightly fancier than Kinect, but only slightly. Like they were the beginning, and then it got fancier and fancier.
No, I was only half joking, because I've seen so many people map 3D spaces with it, like turn into at Google we have a wall that flip dots. The wall where just black or white binary flip dots on a wall, and using several Kinect cameras, you walk by and your silhouette, your outline is going by.
They're very powerful.
Incredible.
Yeah, like
I think that you two should get together and nerd out on the tech of this. On your own.
On somebody else's time.
There's also people that are way smarter at the tech than me. Like I'm like,
because you're the designer, right?
What does the
you come up with
look like?
the idea. Yeah. Well, that was my question. Was once you did Glass Menagerie and you were like, oh, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm into this. Did it then? Because sometimes manifestation. We always say that manifestation is declaring that you want something and then changing how you show up in the world so that you create it. But in that phase, I'm wondering then, did you have to go seek it? Or was the theater industry there also, and then they were coming to you? Did you have to go and say to people, hey, have you thought about doing it like this? Or did they just find you?
Yeah, I mean, then it was so after that show, and it was received quite well. Again, I was in Greensboro, North Carolina, so there's a limited amount of theater available. And I was very broke at the time, so I didn't have the ability to like bounce back and forth to other places to see shows, especially with projections. Like projection was still only vaguely existing to me. Like I started doing research into the history of it, like other software that could help me do it. I was teaching myself programs that would help me design, but like self-doing. And then that is when they started the projection program at Yale. And I was like, I don't want to go the first year. I feel like I've only done this one show and I don't know anything about anything. So then I spent the next year sort of exploring and trying, and they had some more opportunities at the theater that I was at to design more. We did this insane Christmas Carol. hashtag all regional theaters. But like, yeah, we put it on, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'm ready. And I applied, and I got accepted. I spent like my last $5 to go to New Haven and apply, and just to see how it went.
More than $5, but
I mean, I think I spent it on the coffee before the interview. Like I had like the hotel and the plane, and then like the last $5 was the coffee, and banked it all.
So then you've got this degree now from Yale in projection that is new and is great. So then what is the chance that connects you with Mark Jacobs and starting Feast? This
I know I really want to talk about Feast.
Yeah, I'd love to. I hope it comes back very soon. So, I mean, okay, so then, I graduated from Yale again with about $5 to my name. I moved to New York and just tried to meet as many people as I possibly could, and tried to not be an asshole as often as possible, to try and be as available as possible and work as much as possible on as many things as I could take in, because I was just excited about it all. Because even though I had this wonderful education from Yale, there was still so much more to learn and to absorb.
Always more to learn.
And it was my first time in New York City, so it was like, holy fuck, everything is here. There's so many communities. What's going on? Let me meet all these people. And it just tried to find my way, and through the people that I met, some opportunities came up. But again, it was just like trying to meet as many people as possible, trying to be as kind and as available as possible to anybody that would give me a chance.
So what I'm hearing is that just meet more people, like, and be nice. Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.
So that they want to call on you. Be available is an interesting, I get it. It's an interesting concept of like, you got to say yes.
To the dress.
Right. But I mean, where's the counterbalance to that? Was your approach like, well, I'll just say yes to I'll be available. I'll try all of these things and then we'll filter out. Or or maybe it took a while to get to the point where you were a little picky?
Yeah, I mean,
prioritize.
Yeah, I would say just now I have a somewhat ability to be picky, and especially in the beginning, because I had an artistic hunger and a literal hunger. I had to make some choices. So I was like, artistically hungry, but also hungry.
Yeah.
So I had to take work that could help pay the rent. Try and set me up financially successfully. I had some debt from both colleges as well as some credit card, normal young person stuff. And so that helped naturally weed out things. Like there was opportunities that would have been really exciting. Could I do it for $100 or $200? But I had to have work that could sustain me. And I was lucky enough to have associate work and assistant work that I could at least continue to learn from now new mentors, these designers, on how the industry works.
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. And now we're back. Everything you're involved with, though, there's so many different paths, genres, or maybe it's all the same. So, like Mark Jacobs, you're doing work with fashion and work with TV and film and work with theater. Are these all the same connections on the back end, or is it just like now all the connections that you were saying yes to years ago are coming to fruition, so you're just jumping from project to project that happens to be all in different mediums?
I mean, I think it's all the same in the end, especially in content like I create, or artistic input is more what I like to think of myself as, like this dramaturgical, like this speaking and trying to understand what the idea or what you're going for. But the people themselves that get me the gigs is a wide gamut of people. I think it is all rooted in this theatrical or television space, but it is, I think many people are trying to do many different things and take many different turns. And I think that's interesting. And so anytime that I can be with someone and talk about what they're trying to do and flex my artistic mind muscle or whatever, I think that's exciting. But like the gig of it really is just finding people that you're interested in being around and seeing what they're doing, because it's fashion or a small, like, way downtown play, like they can have the same way to feed you. Like the conversation is just as exciting even if it's completely different, even if it's corporate or, completely artistic. Like there is value, at least to me, in each of those avenues.
Have you ever worked on anything or thought about doing some sort of fashion collaboration where like the models all come out dressed in all white or all some solid color, and all that you see is projection on their clothes?
All the time. Sounds fantastic. I would love to do that.
So why not? Have you talked about this with Mr. Jacobs or any?
I've never met Mr. Jacobs. I met like a friend of a friend. That
you daydream in projection.
Exactly. I mean, there are always proposals happening. Like I'm always trying to get involved in new and different things. Like, Feast is a great example. Like this guy that brought me out, Roland Jones, that brought me out to LA, also funded Feast, which is an immersive food show. Basically, I was like, why do I eat what I eat? I'm from the Midwest. My family mostly eats out. So why do people cook? Why does it matter what we eat? I don't know. I don't understand food. I've watched, Chef's Table, but that's about the extent of it. And so then we went to Ireland. I've met two other fellows that are interested in the same thing, a wonderful sound designer named Tyler Kiefer and this wonderful director-dramaturg named Hugh Farrell, who's Irish, that brought us out there with some of this dough. And then we just drove around the island and met producers of things and talked to them about why they farm and why they think it's important. And then we built it into this immersive show where it's a 12-course meal that you can see the farms and the oyster farms, the beehives, how cheese is made, and you hear from them in these special headphones that you can hear through. So you can also talk to your neighbor if you want to. So it's not an isolated experience, and just experience, how we're all connected. And I mean, hopefully that's what you get out of it. How you're connected to these strangers at the table, but also how you're connected to the earth, and why food is part of this. If you give to the earth, it'll give back idea.
Wait, so where are the projections?
I want to go to there.
I want to go to there too.
We're trying to constantly try to make it again.
Well, so how does I don't know much about this. So is it like I was initially picturing something like